right. Put on your red jacket, grab your copy of the Smallville High Torch, and watch out for those meteor rocks. We're here for another episode of Torch Talk, where we are discussing each episode of Smallville week by week. As always, I'm Jeremiah, joined by Myriah. Hi, Myriah.
Hello there. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm great.
Are you excited to talk Bug Boy today?
Oh, not particularly. I'm actually a little skeezed out. I just watched the episode last minute. I'm a procrastinator, and I really had to skim it because there are things I can't unsee, and there are a lot of things I cannot unsee in this episode.
Yeah.
So no, but I'd rather talk about it than look at it. I'm gonna be honest.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's a very gross episode of broadcast television, and we'll get into it. But I'm glad you made it through, even if you had to skip a little bit.
Kind of. Like I made it through ish, but like I may have all in all consumed 30 minutes of the episode in pieces that I still fast forwarding. You could still see some of it. So I'm not okay, but it's fine.
But now we'll be done with it.
Okay.
And
Never been.
in case you're wondering, in this episode we are looking back at the episode Metamorphosis, season 1, episode 2, which originally aired on the WB back on October 23rd, 2001, featuring Chad E. Donella as Greg Arkin, aka Mariah's favorite, Bug Boy. Any initial thoughts beyond your sort of gross out experience before we get into the recap, Mariah?
Um, I mean, I have thoughts on like how like becoming Bug Boy made him like significantly less ugly. And like I understand something to do with powers, but I feel like that's like a recurring thing that like people get hotter with like powers, and I don't think that's really the way that works. Not that this is true, but anyway,
Yeah,
those are mine.
I think the first time I watched it, because I watched it twice before the recap, just so I could be an overachiever and compare myself to you. Um, I
You
didn't
win.
really notice that. And the second time, even like how he styles his hair gets better. It's kind of weird. Gives me honestly very Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 3 vibes, which
Yeah.
comes out many years after this episode. So, what do you do? Let's get into the recap though. We begin with something I really wanted to talk to you about and get your opinion. So we get the previously on Smallville. We get the whole ending, shot for shot, note for note, from the pilot episode, complete with the camera panning back up to the stars. Lifehouse is everything. We, we see Clark say thanks for the dance, Lana. She looks and smiles like she has heard him say thank you.
Um,
And so my question becomes, even technically before the episode begins, but it was in this episode. Is there any way, she heard him say that his voice traveled, or there's something superhuman, or they have a special connection,
is a
or
soul
something,
connection between
or
the
is it
two of
just for
them.
the feels? Sorry, I
It,
didn't
it,
hear it.
it is a soul connection between the two of them to where she knows, even before she knew, that's how much they are soulmates because they are the soulmates in this show. And so that is how they are soulmates.
So it's a soul connection. That's your official
Yeah.
answer.
Yes, it is. Mhm. And that's factual. Like, you don't even have to rebuttal it.
Okay, because
Okay.
it is pretty obvious from at least that moment.
Yeah.
It's good
That
stuff.
yep, they are the people we're shipping, and anyone else should probably put away their Superman comics and just get with the program. Thank you.
This is where we disagree. I know that we are probably seasons away from really unpacking that. But I love that answer because there is a very special connection.
Nurse.
But I just wondered why she sort of looked like she heard him. It was just a interesting choice.
Oh,
Also, I love that song "Lifehouse is Everything." I know it became eventually sort of this bad youth group skit soundtrack at some point, but that Lifehouse album is very much of the time, and we'll talk about needle drops in this episode as well. But
sometimes
I think
in
it's
my
great.
place of work, in my place of work that is a Christian place, I will hear that song played, and I'm like, oh, we're doing this, and this is in the year of our Lord 2026. So
Yeah.
I don't know why, but it does. And I'm like, I don't know who picked the music today, but I don't hate it.
Oh, that's a good choice. It's a good choice. Anyway, So this episode sort of officially begins right after that homecoming dance. Lana gets dropped off at home. She goes to her room. She finds a box waiting for her. We don't know who it's from. We think maybe Whitney, maybe her aunt, maybe Clark. She opens it. Butterflies fly out. It seems romantic at first, but we see the character Greg Arkin outside her window, watching her like a total creeper and recording her with a video camera. And I need to point out, much more effort to record someone on video in 2001 than now, just picking up your phone. So, very creepy vibes there. Um, when Greg gets home, he gets in a fight with his mom. She threatens to send him to military school. He then loads up some of his insect collection, as one does, storms out of the house, but not with part of his bug collection. He is also driving, I want to point out, a Volkswagen Beetle. So he's driving a bug. Little tip of the hat to VW there, I suppose. He's also listening to Papa Roach. And I just realized today that that's probably also a bug reference that he's listening to Papa Roach.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Look what they did there.
Yeah, so someone's like, we are so clever, and I'm not sure that they were. But, 5 gold stars for trying, I guess they say. Anyway, he crashes the car, gets attacked by these bugs that have been hanging out with some meteor rock.
Can I interject that he crashes the car after he says, I'm gonna get you somewhere safe? And then, yeah. Anyway, that was my like way to assure those poor little kryptonite infected bugs that they were getting somewhere safe. They did not. Anyway, continue.
A lot of car crashes in season one of Smallville. Not the last one of the episode,
Can
even.
I just interject? I need to interject that I learned how to drive after this, okay? And in my head, because this is my perception of driving, and if you veer off the road at all, you flip multiple times. And so I was convinced that if I hit like the side of a road, I was just going to go flipping and flying, guaranteed. And I'm still not unconvinced that that's what's going to happen, but I think that might be a dramatization. But I did need to at least say that that shaped my perception of reality and driving and kind of my fears of driving because I don't have great depth perception and I'd rather not pay attention. And what if I hit the side and then I'm flipping through a field? So anyway,
So make good choices because it's really dangerous to drive a car. That's really what you learned from these first few
yeah.
episodes. Be safe, y'all. Be safe. Anyway, he gets attacked by those bugs post car crash. The next morning, Greg's mom goes to his room, finds all those bug cages or whatever you call bug containers empty. What she does not see is Greg is stuck to the ceiling right above her. Creepy shot, straight out of any horror movie. And it really works. Like, if there's any question, is this guy going to be the villain? In that moment, you're like, okay, this is very much the freak of the week. And we cut to the theme song. Somebody Save Me by Remy Zero. It's the first time, technically, I want to point out that we get to hear the theme song because it was not in the pilot. That song did eventually, by the way, reach the top 40 charts in the US, but also in the UK and in France. Any thoughts about the Smallville theme song, which they kept for the entire run of the show?
Honestly, I still like today. I was like, oh, I watched this with subtitles, and it says "Let Your Waters" because I know it always said "Warm Hands," and I still was like, listen, I'm like, I still heard "Warm Hands" with subtitles, so I don't know what they're doing. Also, somebody save me, and like that's the only save me song we could find. Like what? I digress. Those are my thoughts, but I mean, it works, and now I'll never not hear that and be happy inside. So,
Yeah, I think it came from the band's third album, and I think they sort of ended up being stuck by it. It's like, oh, you're the Smallville theme song people,
yeah,
and there are worse things, but I think it's a good song, but it is, like I've already said a couple times in this recording, very much of its time. It sounds like an alt rock song from 2001 because it is.
makes sense.
Anyway, that's the first segment. We get those lovely opening credits. Everybody turns around in slow motion with their name. We come back after the theme song. Clark is having a dream where he's flying over Smallville and into Lana's bedroom. It's not weird. He floats above her bed, and then Lana wakes up and says, "It's all your fault, Clark." Clark wakes up in his own room and realizes he's actually floating above his own bed. He drops, breaks the bed, and later he'll tell his dad that that happened. We then go to the farmer's market. No one has ever been more hyped for a farmer's market in the history of creation than the people in this episode of Smallville. There are apples there. Everybody gotta go get the apples at the farmer's market. I don't know. Um, Clark confronts Whitney about stringing him up in the cornfield. Whitney calls it a joke, which obviously does not make it better. He also asks Clark where Lana's necklace is, which is a really weird choice. Obviously, he does not have it anymore. Lex does. We also hear the needle drop Weezer's Island in the Sun, one of my favorite songs. So these are my jams, but they're very much worth it. Um, anyway, uh, we also have Lana running into Greg at this farmer's market, who asks her for help with the school assignment. Lex is also there, also watching Lana. Everybody loves Lana. I think that's really the moral of the story from this episode. Lex brings up what happened in the cornfield and starts to get even more curious about Clark. He's also very curious about Lana, who he notices from a distance. I was really surprised, I gotta say, to see Lex show up at the farmer's market. I get that he's in charge of the branch of LexCorp that's in Smallville, or sorry, Luther Corp that's in Smallville, but he's also going to the farmer's market. He seems like the least farmer's market character I've ever seen.
And in a blazer. Like you're not
All
gonna
black. That's what
if,
you wear.
if you're trying to like be part of the community, like maybe this is the day you wear a t-shirt or a button up or like, like plaid or something. But no, he's sticking with it, which is fine. It's Lex.
Consistency is important, and so
Mhm.
that's a core a core personality trait of Lex. Um, so we also have in this same sort of second segment, Greg goes after Whitney, attacks him in his truck, jumps on top of the truck, causing yet another car crash. Technically, a truck crash this time. Clark and his parents are going home from the farmer's market and they come across the accident. Clark saves Whitney right before the truck explodes. We have Clark sort of enveloped by fire. He is emerges from that blaze of a fiery explosion safely. Martha and Jonathan are relieved, and they also see that Clark is completely unharmed. And we go to commercial break. I will say that I don't know how much it costs to explode a car on television. We had Lana's parents in a car explosion in the pilot. We had in episode 3, in the Angry Coach episode that we'll get to next week, a car explosion happens in that episode. But this one looks so bad. I've seen Instagram filters that are more convincing. So I think it must have been hard to do the special effect of Clark standing in front of the flames. It looks really cheesy, really low budget. But that's our second segment of this episode, Metamorphosis. Clark saves the day again, shows up ripping. At first, I thought a door panel off, but he rips like the windshield off. Anything to add about this portion of the show? Nothing gross really's happened yet. At least you probably like that.
Nothing gross. It's I'm stuck on the farmer's market being like everyone is there the day after this big game. So like they're painting this like in time, like nothing for a sleepy town, nothing sleeps in this town because now everyone gets up and now we're all at the farmer's market. We have forgotten about the crazy electric guy that ravaged the town yesterday. And now we have
Yeah.
this. So like I'm from a small town. And that didn't really happen in the cadence I get at Smallville, but like maybe we space out the timeline to it like a week later, but it's fine. It works.
Also, I don't see any scenario, even if he had it, where Clark would give the necklace back to Whitney. Like, what a weird ask.
Yeah. And even truth is, if Clark would give it back, is one thing. Like, let's say that he weren't like, deathly allergic to it. But like, hey, haha, that was a joke. did they not hear the story about the guy who almost died from that 12 years before? Like, this is no longer a joke. This is essentially attempted murder in your town. But okay, you guys are still doing this. And you think, no big deal, no hard feeling. Yeah, there are going to be some hard feelings. I don't like being murdered.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, all the reason to hold a grudge for sure.
Whitney is the worst of all the characters, just in case anyone wondering. Like of all the villains, Whitney is the super villain in the story to me. Lex is complex, Whitney's just bad.
I feel like they should make a T-shirt that says "Lex is complex."
Yep. Yep.
That's a good rhyme you just made.
Thank you.
I feel like this episode was written in part to be reassuring for the actor who played Whitney, and I don't have that name in front of me right now. But he auditioned for Lex, didn't get it. Auditioned for Clark, didn't even feel like he was right for it. And so I feel like this episode, the writers, producers, whoever you want to credit or blame, were like, "Don't worry, kid. We have some stuff for you to do," because he gets a lot to do in this episode and he doesn't get much to do really after this hardly at all. But this is sort of the Whitney episode.
This is true.
We move on to segment three, which begins with Clark telling Jonathan, his dad, about this dream and waking up. He says, "I was kind of floating." Jonathan does not have an explanation, of course, but he promises Clark that they will deal with it like they deal with everything else together. We also get Lex visiting Lana at the stables. He tries to introduce himself, but Lana remembers him from when she was younger and caught him skinny dipping in Metropolis. He also realizes through seeing a photo of Lana that the necklace that he found in the cornfield around Clark's neck belongs to her. So he pushes Lana to ask Whitney where he was before the big game. Then Lex shows Clark that necklace. Clark immediately feels sick. We see a pretty good special effect, I feel like, where his hand just looks sickly and veiny and pale. Lex puts the necklace in a lead box, which blocks the effects of
Oh,
kryptonite.
fortuitous also that it is a lead box. Like, wow. Anyway, but that's
Yeah, which is important to Superman lore in the comics. That kryptonite does not work in lead. So occasionally, like Superman in the comics will wear like a lead suit or lead lined costume so that he can deal with the effects of kryptonite. Why doesn't he always wear a lead lined costume? We won't get into that. That's a whole comic book debate. Anyway, yes, the lead box. I gotta tell you that it's lead. I gotta describe the box I found too. Um, yeah, pretty exposition heavy there to explain the box being made of lead.
oh no
I'm
no
sorry.
he didn't. I don't think he explained it because part of this comes up in our lightning round, but like it was Clark asking like so like oh like what is this box made of? Clark is being, and we're gonna get to this later, but Clark is being like in this episode a really great journalist in his leading questions that he asked throughout this episode. I'm like, you know what, that's smooth.
Also, I thought was interesting in this sort of conversation that he tries to convince Clark to use it sort of as a way to get close to Lana. He even says, "You'll win her heart." So I think that's a good idea, but I think we're supposed to think that it's sort of villainous for him to make that suggestion. He also makes a nice callback to when he tried to give Clark the truck. He says, "What is it about Kents and gifts?" Which I thought was kind of nice. Always nice to see Smallville make references to the episode beforehand because sometimes it gets really episodic. So it's nice for them to reference the pilot more. Anyway, at school, Lana confronts Whitney about what he did to Clark and asks for the necklace back. She's so mad. Also, he has one tiny band aid on his cheek. That's the result of the horrific car crash. And I understand that they want to show that he's injured, but they like literally, it's like one like 2 inch bandage on his cheek. Strong guy. Whitney says he lost the necklace. We also see Greg showing up, better looking than we've seen him before, trying to get Lana's attention, but she tells him that she needs to go see Clark instead. At the barn, Clark arrives and sees Lana. She apologizes for Whitney, and the two of them have that nice moment in the loft. We see Clark calling the barn his fortress of solitude, but he makes the choice not to return the necklace. We also get a nice reference to her saying, "Can you see my house from here?" when she's looking at the telescope. So she knows from the get go that he might be spying on her. She's not creeped out by that. But we also see him move the telescope frantically to make sure that it's not pointed at her front porch. That's a nice move there. So smooth, Clark. And the segment ends back at Greg's house, where his mom comes home to find the heat turned up to like 106 or something that your thermostat probably wouldn't even do at home. Spider webs all over the wall. He tells her that he's planning to eat, molt, and mate. And then, as he often does, Greg talks about insects, in this case, arachnids, talking about the pharaoh spider, which kills its mother after it hatches. And then he sprays some kind of goo. I don't know if it's supposed to be spider webs or goo or poison or venom. I don't know enough about the pharaoh spider or this guy's powers, but it's really creepy. And then we go to commercial, dramatic ending.
He is all bugs. He is just all bugs in this. Like, he doesn't even pick a bug. He's just all bugs.
So I guess he got
I
the
don't like
powers from all the bugs that were in the car and knows all the facts about them
but the
because they were
ones
his.
but the ones that were stinging him were all flying bugs. And he has some spidey powers. And so unless he was incapacitated enough for this episode. I hate it. I'm gonna have to go shower after this. Like, I seriously cannot. Like, my foot is itching, and I'm about to like freak out just because we're talking about bugs and my foot is itching.
Okay, so we can move on then. The
Okay.
segment after that commercial break begins with Lex asking Clark, if he saved any lives on his way over. It shows that Lex is paying close attention to him. Then things get worse with Greg, your least favorite scene in the history of Smallville. He is molting in the shower, peeling off his skin. It's really gross, from a production standpoint. I don't know what this stuff is. If it's chicken fat, if it's prosciutto, if it's fruit by the
Ah!
foot, but it's so gross. He goes to the Kent family farm and attacks Clark, which leads to Jonathan falling in slow motion towards some very sharp farming equipment. Clark goes after Jonathan, saves him right in the nick of time. The segment ends with them realizing someone is in the rafters, and the farm equipment, by the way, does not even cut Clark's shirt.
He got, he's wearing a lead lined shirt these days because he found out about the box.
I don't
You don't know
understand. Like,
that. You don't know that.
why isn't the shirt ripped a little bit?
Because their budget can't get a new shirt for him every episode. He wears the same one anyway. So, like, if they keep ripping his shirt, then they're gonna have to like have more commercial breaks.
Yeah, I did really like that it cut to slow motion because they've done the sped up effect, I guess is what I'm gonna call it, several times. So instead, we slow down Jonathan so that Clark can move at normal speed to save him. I thought that looked pretty cool. I thought that effect worked pretty well. We also have Bug Boy crawling around on the ceiling, very Spider-Man esque. I'm sure that's a coincidence, right? And we come back from commercial. We come back from that dramatic rescue of Jonathan Kent. Clark is explaining that weird things happen all the time, not just in the rafters of the barn. He talks about the wall of weird, how he feels responsible for every bad thing that's happened in Smallville since the meteor shower, especially because Lana's parents had died the day that he arrived. Jonathan reminds him that it's not his fault. Clark still feels guilty. Jonathan Kent, Father of the Year, tells him that feeling guilt and caring about people is part of what makes him human, saying, and I quote, "You can't blame yourself for something you have no control over." What a good dad in this scene. Meanwhile, Chloe finally gets something to do. In the episode, she starts putting the pieces together and finds some information about people taking on the traits of insects After being bitten by swarms, she figures out that Greg was probably bitten by meteor affected bugs and turned into what she calls a bug boy. She seems to have read one or two newspaper articles and figured all of this out thanks to some high quality journalism that she read on her computer. Sure. Um, Clark, Chloe, and Pete go to Greg's house and find the shower of molted skin, a video of Lana playing on their television set, and jump scare Greg's dead mother. They realize Greg is probably going after Lana next. Chloe says he's, quote, gone Kafka, which is a nice literary reference, of course, to the story of Metamorphosis by Kafka. Whitney, meanwhile, arrives to talk to Lana, but Greg shows up at the barn. Bug Boy throws Whitney into the hay, turns his attention to Lana, and Bug Boy tells her it's time for us. Dramatic commercial break. Will Clark get there in time? Spoiler alert, no, he won't. But did you think it was weird that Chloe was just like, hey guys, look, I can open the window?
I mean, honestly, once I saw the skin, I had to fast forward. I
Okay.
so those are
She
some
seemed very cool
details.
with breaking and entering.
Okay,
I
yeah.
can't say that. Breaking and entering. Anyway,
But that's like she's a reporter. She's not a police officer.
she plays by her own rules. She's a journalist.
Yeah. Yeah. Like she doesn't have to. Also a high school journalist in a freaky town, like there's people lives at stake. Like what cop is gonna care about breaking a window?
And I don't know. I thought it was more gross out than it needed to be. Like I know that you had dreaded watching it, and I know that you skipped it, so we're not going to elaborate on how gross it was in any sort of detail. But we understand that this guy is a bug boy, and we don't need to see all of that. But man, they went for it.
They really did. I saw just a second of the shower scene and I'm not okay.
And shout out to whoever did the makeup or who the prop master was, because the dead mom is on screen for like 1 second, like 24 frames, and they're like, no, we got to do this jump scare where she's caught in the webs.
Yeah, it's this will be the least interested I am in any of the episodes because like I'm so grossed out I don't even have opinions. Like I'm like ugh.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to deal with, and I think the show's really still trying to find its footing here. I think the pilot episode they spent weeks and weeks on. This episode I think they filmed in like 7 or 8 days, if I remember correctly. And so you sort of get the idea that they're moving a little bit faster when you watch it.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Because like, where did Pete come from? How is he like in on this immediately, and then he's gone for the rest of the episode again? He doesn't. I don't know. I don't know.
Yep,
It moves quickly. It moves quickly. I'll say that.
that would make sense. That one would make sense.
And we come back to the final segment of this episode. The final segment begins with Clark arriving to see Lana, but instead he finds at the stables Whitney is hurt, and they both realize Lana has been taken by Bug Boy. Dun dun dun. Whitney tells Clark that Greg took her into the woods. Clark figures out that he took her to the old treehouse that they used to play in together in their childhood that's near the foundry. So Clark immediately knows where to go. Clark arrives to find Lana wrapped in a cocoon, and then he and Greg fight. The fight moves from the treehouse very quickly into the creekside foundry, which is full of meteor rocks. So Clark gets weaker. He realizes, however, that there is lead in that factory that can shield him from the meteor rock that he uses to get the upper hand. So his hand goes from being very weak looking to very normal looking in a brief amount of time. Clark throws Greg across the room, and Greg, for whatever reason, pulls on like a chain or a pulley or something, is crushed by the falling equipment. We see bugs scatter out from that equipment. We'll talk about that later. Back at the treehouse, We see someone free Lana, and the camera pans to reveal that it's Whitney that gets to do the rescuing. Whitney gets to get the hug. At least from Lana's perspective, he gets to be the hero. From Lana's point of view, Whitney is the one who arrives to save her. Clark makes it back to the treehouse just in time to see them hug. Apparently, all is forgiven in that moment, sure. And
Someone
then we have
rescues
the
me
end
from
of.
a cocoon, you can
Say it
be
again, sorry.
forgiven. If someone rescues me from a cocoon, I think I'd also forgive them.
Okay, I'll be sure and pass that along to your friends and family. It'd be worth knowing to be like, well, all you got to do is save her
Really
from a
bad.
bug boy, and you're good.
Yeah, that's it.
I just didn't know, like from a female perspective, if all would be forgiven, or if you would be like, okay, you still like tried to kill my friend Clark yesterday.
Mm.
Apparently not.
But
That's cool.
today I was in a cocoon and I've kind of forgotten about everything else with that level of trauma. But fine, like I get it
Okay.
personally.
I was going to ask if you did get it or if that was like convoluted. So worth knowing. At the end of the episode, Clark leaves Lana's necklace on her front doorknob. Lana finds it and is happy to have it back, but she does not know that it was Clark that returned it. He walks away, like he often does, alone in the dark, as the camera pans up to the stars. And I just want to say, she is so exceptionally pretty here when she smiles, when she sees the necklace, that if you were not smitten by Lana Lang somehow before this moment, you're like, oh my stars, look at her. And so you totally understand exactly what Clark is feeling. And that's the end of the episode. This will predate the lightning round. But do you think Clark should have gave her the necklace back himself?
No, because she probably would like, oh, will you put this on me? And then he would have become like the fumbling fool again. So like there wasn't really a good way for him to put the like give her the necklace. He knew he was already risking it trying to like shaking it and put it on the door. Um, so no, I don't think so. I wish like she would have known it was him, but that's one of the many secrets that he has to keep from her over the course of seasons 1 through 5 in order to keep her safe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I feel like he missed his moment. Like as much as we don't often get to say Lex was right, I think Lex was right. Like if he had said, "Hey, Whitney put this on me when he strung me up in the cornfield. Remember that? That was like 2 days ago. Well, I wanted to return it. I found out that it's yours, and you mean a lot to me. So here's the necklace." He could have left it in the box. He still had the box, the lead box.
Then he would have had to like speed away or find a good reason. And like he wasn't carrying a cell phone for like his mom to call him, in that moment. And also, I personally think that because I think her and Whitney's relationship would have forever been rift if she hadn't gotten her necklace back. And Clark would have never had to deal with that stupid necklace again. And also, like, I understand, like, I have a dead parent, but like, that's really morbid to carry to like that necklace is morbid. And there might be a time to not with it. And I know at some point she doesn't, but like he could have just made that happen and had that secret that he has a necklace. If he wanted to bury it, he could have buried it. Like there were so many other things to do with the necklace. However, that does show how selfless he is. That he's like, I will repair their relationship and risk ours, but also like selfless, stupid. Are these the same things? Those are my thoughts on the necklace. Sorry.
But that was beautiful, though.
Just like it is a very selfless thing, but like you can be selfless and like not smart. And that was a selfless, not smart thing to do.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But it was important for him to give the necklace back to Lana when when he knew that would make her happy. And I think
But
that you're right. I think you're right. That says a lot about who he is,
yeah.
and he would rather choose her happiness than his own.
Yeah. But I mean, she does go visit the graveyard probably more than she should. And like she has a reminder on Time Magazine that we talked about last episode. Like there's a lot for this girl to remember her parents by. what kind of sick joke was that to make a necklace out of that? Aunt Nell, I don't know. She's always been a wild card to me throughout the series. So, um, anyway,
Uh,
those are my
what does she say in the pilot? Like, there's only good luck left, or something. It's a weird choice for her to be
yeah, like
obsessed with
so
the
much
necklace.
bad came from it. There's only good.
Yes.
No, like sometimes things are just bad, and like this is like think about it like you find the bullet that killed your parents, and then you turn it into a necklace. People would question your sanity because it's not like a gemstone, you know. So
Yeah.
this is the necklace is the necklace had to be there, but the necklace is a problem for me.
Okay. We've got another hypothetical for you, since this episode sort of begins um, with Clark flying or
Mhm.
dreaming about flying, and I guess technically some of both.
Okay, I need to just say real quick to all of your big questions. I am one that will develop a theory, and that is truth, and I cannot be convinced differently. So just know that I may have some authoritative answers on your questions, and they are correct. So
But
I just want you to know.
that's important for our listeners to remember. Like, they're going to wonder, is Myriah correct? And the answer is just going to be yes.
Yeah, like just accept it and move on. That's what I keep telling my husband.
Because I am very much the opposite. Like, I'm maybe too open-minded at times. So
I
what
have
what
to make
a
you
what a
open
nice
mind.
contrast for us.
Yeah,
I'll just go with you, even if I disagree on
that's
most things.
easier.
Lois excluded, and we'll leave it at that. So my question is, how would the show have changed? This is a big question, sort of overarching question. How would the show have changed if Clark flew before like season 10? And I know that he flew like as Bizarro Clark, and he, has a few moments where he sort of flies where he's under the influence of something or something. But they sort of toyed this with this idea in episode 2 that he might be flying soon, and then no flights, no tides happens, and
Okay.
suddenly there's no more flying. How would it have been different if he was not running everywhere, if he was flying everywhere?
In two very specific ways. It
Okay.
would have been wardrobe difference because can you imagine as he learned to fly, landing in like those steel-toed boots, like from a flight, would have caused like rivets everywhere. So they would have had to change it.
Okay.
Um, and then number two, more people would have the correct view that this is Superman and the this is the standard of Superman. So instead of me having to convince people, like whenever I sit down to watch the Superman with my husband and I tell him how Superman has it all wrong because that's not how they did in Smallville, instead, people would see Tom Welling as Clark Kent as an actual Superman, not like an afterthought in the multiverse episode. And he would have gotten the respect that he deserves on Smallville.
I agree. I think plus visually, it's more pleasing than him
Mm-hmm.
running everywhere. That's why
For the
for
weird jumps.
for years there's that shot in what becomes the Smallville opening of him flying because it looks great, and him running just does not look as great visually.
Yeah. No. And you're telling me that he developed all the other powers or the majority of the other powers and flying is just that one was too hard. Fire eyes, not too hard. X-ray vision, not too hard, but flying that, like that's a defying gravity, but like that's not like fire eyes. You're telling me that was easier than flying?
I don't know. I don't know.
No.
The episode I'm referring to is season 4, episode 1, Crusade, where we get him. He's got the black shirt on. He's flying in the clouds. They used that for years because it looked great. They could have used episode after episode of him flying, and it would have looked great. So,
Okay.
just curious about your thoughts there. Other big questions. So I got some Bug Boy questions. Nothing too graphic, but every time he appears in the episode after he gets the powers, his Bug Boy powers, we hear what I would describe sort of as a chirping noise, kind of a crickets noise. Is that part of the score? Is he making that noise with his body? Can the characters hear the chirping? Because when they're in this abandoned factory, Clark at one point looks around like he heard the chirping noise. And so I was just curious, do you think that's coming off of his body? Or is it just sort of the way that you would use a musical cue in an episode
I
to
think it's
show
a
that the
music
character.
cue. I
Okay.
think it's one of those things we get in on and they don't get in on it because if that noise were coming off him, maybe Clark and his like developing super hearing could have heard it. But like that would be a dead giveaway. There's something wrong with this dude, like from the get go. You know, like if I were around someone and they chirped, I'd have some questions. And if people ask too many questions, we don't have an episode because someone figures it out before they got to pull their cameras out and film this for us.
So is he just watching that 5 minute loop of video footage he recorded of Lana on repeat in the living room? Because his mom at one point is like, "Is this what you do with your time?" And then later on, when Chloe and Pete and Clark are at the house, Bug Boy's house, that same clip is showing on television. Is that just,
Yeah, of course. What else? Like, is he gonna watch reruns of Reba? No, he wants to see Lana.
he should watch reruns of Reba. But
Maybe.
yeah, he's, I guess, you know, he likes what he likes and he likes that video that he took of Lana. So he's just gonna watch it in the living room, not in
It's
his.
good to be in his living room because he has too many bugs.
Oh, it's true. That's true. Because I don't think there's a TV in his room because there's all the bugs.
Yeah.
So, hey mom, this is what's on TV. Weird, huh? I don't know. I also just want to mention, I alluded to this at the start of our recording, that Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man movie opened in May of 2001. About 7 months later, it became one of the biggest hits at the theater that year at the box office. Is this a playful dig at Spider-Man the year before that movie came out from DC? Marvel's rival company. While this did, like I said, predate the movie by about 7 or maybe 8 months. Everyone knew that movie was coming. No one had seen it yet. What do you think? Are they sort of like saying, "Hey, Bug Boy's the bad guy. Look at this guy. He's the hero. It's our guy."
Absolutely. Because there's no chance that that's a coincidence. And because this is one of the more out of pocket episodes, like of course they're like this is us competing with them, but not competing. Because why else would this be the episode that we did? Like
Yeah,
this is a random episode. This episode is not the best put together. We've talked about like, of course, I
and it
am the queen of petty, and I would do that even if it were just like in the writers' room and be like, we're not going to tell them why. We're just going to sell them on this. Like, yes, they did this.
because the bugs we see in the episode are like flies and butterflies and moths, and then he's shooting webs and building webs and crawling on the ceiling and very Spider-Man esque in his skill set. So there you go. Any big questions for you? Since I've asked you like half a dozen.
I have no big questions because this episode, I this will be the least thoroughly I watched an episode because I couldn't. It gives me like I will be showering right after we're done with this recording because
Okay.
the whole heebie-jeebies. Like, so no big questions for me except for why did they have to make this? Why did it have to be so graphic? Why the why the men in black crawling bugs? Like why
Yeah.
did we have to why did we have to do this? And you're not going to hear me make a lot of movie references because sometimes I can watch movies and I don't know what happened in them a year later. Like I just don't think about it. But I watched Men in Black in childhood and I can still see the bugs.
Yeah.
Like
It is
it things
Men in
stick
Black esque. I forgot how bug focused that first Men in Black was, but you're right. You're right.
with.
All right, moving on with our lightning round questions. Who won the episode? In other words, which character had the best moment or moments in this episode?
Do you have an answer first? Because I answered all of your big
Um,
questions.
I think, and I did refer to this earlier, as much as they're trying to give Whitney things to do, I think this is the Everybody Loves Lana episode. And while she is very much the damsel in distress, she gets to stand up for herself. She has that weird dream sequence where she's like really creepy to Clark. She gets to play with the horses, and we see not just Clark loving Lana, not just Whitney loving Lana, but sort of this idea that will pay off later, unfortunately, where Lex is also very captivated by her. So I think it's Lana's episode, especially by the end. It ends with her looking so beautiful and happy to have that necklace back, even though it doesn't make sense. So Lana's my pick for who won episode 2 of Smallville.
I have two picks, and I'm very pro Lana. So one would be Lex because like I feel like he's like the puppeteer tangling the strings in this episode, and I like how he's just a billionaire with a company to run, just getting in these teenagers' business. So I think that's kind of cool. Also creepy, but like he puppeteers this. However, Clark's leading questions, like whenever he asks, "Oh, what is it made of?" Or even whenever he was asking about the necklace itself, and he's trying to figure out the origin of the necklace. He's being a born journalist in this episode. The way he is asking leading questions, and so for not just his superhero, because we can talk about his act of bravery at the end, but his questions really won the episode. But Clark was their spokesperson, so.
Yeah, you get that sort of investigative journalist vibes from him for the first time. And you should, because he becomes famous newspaper reporter Clark Kent. Good. And I do think it is sort of weird for Lex to just be hanging around all these high school students. He's probably what, 25? Would you guess? How old would you say Lex
I
is
have
in
I
season
think
one?
I've done this math. I think he's 21. So
Oh,
again,
okay.
run into this later. He didn't go to business school, but I believe he is only 6 years older than these kids. However, 6 years, they are 14 here, maybe 15. They're 14. And so 6 years is a lot if you think about a 14 or 15-year-old girl and this 21-year-old guy being like, "Oh, you've grown up." That's like cause for a dad to punch a dude.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So it's and like 21 is better. And I could have. I don't remember when I did this math. Probably before like I just remember going deep dive being like, I don't understand how Lex is hanging out with the teenagers. Like I would have been around the age that Lex is whenever I'm like watching this as an adult thinking about hanging out with 14-year-olds like for fun. Like, no.
I will say, Lex is sort of neglected as a child and doesn't fit in. And so it makes sense why he would feel like I can fit in with these high school students now when we see in flashbacks that he was not a popular kid. So maybe it
But
all
like
makes sense in the
he's
end.
fitting in with them and then he's going to work and using the words like let's circle back. And you have that slide deck. You know what I mean? Like like
True, true.
it doesn't fit, but it's fine. But Lex did I think he won the episode if it weren't for Clark's leading questions that shows for the first time that he actually isn't just being a journalist because he needs a career. Which by the way, no one just picks that. Like I get he had to know what things are going on, but like you have a reason to pick it, and we can say that as journalists.
Absolutely.
Not hazing the
Um,
perfect.
Usually in the lightning round, we ask, what would a real journalist have done differently? I didn't see a lot in this episode, except for Chloe breaking into the house that you could talk about. But I did want to point out something I loved as a college newspaper advisor. Clark asked Chloe if Greg is still routing for the torch. And she says, if your definition of a reporter is someone who actually turns in articles, then no. I see that in my daily life at work, where people will stand up in class and say, I'm a reporter for our campus newspaper. And they have written one article months ago, but it's still how they identify themselves. I found that oddly relatable and even a little bit healing to me on a personal level. So that's not
I'm
really a
so glad.
question, but I just want to point it out.
I'm so glad you could relate to that.
Yeah, yeah, I feel Chloe. I feel like I really understand that. We move next to the Kent Farm wisdom. What does the episode teach us about character, hope, responsibility, faith, and/or truth?
I mean, I know I keep going back to Clark doing the right thing here, but like Clark always does this right thing. And I think a lot of the episodes, that is the theme. Like, even if it, like, and Lex is the one that pointed out, like, you could have just saved yourself the trouble and, not saved Whitney, which is funny because Whitney was trouble for a season and Lex is trouble for like all of Superman lore. So like, oh, he could have saved himself the trouble there. He could have saved himself the trouble with that necklace. But Clark is always doing the right thing because in the world of Superman, like especially at this age, there's not a lot of gray. Like it's a black or white thing,
Mhm.
and I think that is something that as we see Clark develop and see a little more gray in the later seasons, he still always picks right or wrong. Like there's one or the other. And I think that is something he clearly learned from his father, who he saw pick that on a daily basis.
Mhm.
Even the Kents taking him in and sheltering him. So I think these first episodes that's really what you're gathering is that there is a right, there's a wrong, and you have to choose right.
Yeah. There's also that dialogue where Jonathan is talking about, feeling guilt and caring about other people. That's what really makes you human. But you can't blame yourself for something you have no control over. Like that felt very healing, even though that was not something I was struggling with as a human. As I was watching the episode, I was like, "Thanks, Jonathan Kent." Just like good parenting advice from this episode. I feel like for sure. Like even though Clark doesn't really ever learn that fully, he hears it, and that's a good lesson.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Truth is, Jonathan Kent could like write a book and I would just read it, but he has to be writing it as Jonathan Kent. I don't want to read this John Schneider book. I want to read Jonathan Kent as
Yeah,
played by John Schneider and his book and in audiobook form, and I could go to sleep to it.
there was a trend around this time where you would just take quotes from Mr. Rogers or whoever, and you basically assemble those with no commentary, and it's just a book of quotes. They really should have done that by the
Yeah,
end of Smallville. Is here's all the Kent family wisdom. I think it would have
this
been one
is
of
the
those
idea,
novelty
Jeremiah.
books. I got all sorts of good ideas. Nobody asks.
I will buy that book. I'll buy three whole copies.
It's too
So put
late.
it on
It's too late.
Amazon. No, it's not. It's never too late. Smallville lives.
The 25th anniversary, they can release this book,
Yeah.
and they can have John Snyder write an intro or something, and it'll be fine. Um, we move next to the Wall of Weird. Is there a mystery in this episode that deserves further investigation, or are we gonna let this one go?
I mean, the which bug was he is really my there's so many. Like which bug, what happened to him, what do the investigators like whenever they find the mom killed in a very buggy way, like what do you write on a cause of death? And like how do you prosecute it? Like does it even go to a jury? Because how do you explain this? So there's I have a lot of questions. So yeah, we should probably investigate some more.
I do wonder about that just in a practical way. Clark very much comes to tell his dad a lot of things, and I enjoy that relationship and that aspect of the show. But does he come home and say, I think the kid is dead, but he also might just be some bugs out in the woods somewhere? I don't know. I don't know. So, speaking of Wall of Weird, we're only in episode 2, of course, but we're going to eventually rank season one's Freaks of the Week. As we rank our Freaks of the Week in the Wall of Weird, is he better, or let's say it this way, is he more memorable than Scarecrow Jeremy from the pilot? Would you put him ranked in the top spot on our two spot list on our Wall of Weird of Freaks of the Week?
He's more memorable because he's infamous. Like he is skeezy, he is stuck in my brain. And like Jeremy had a series of unfortunate events happen to him. This guy was bad from the beginning and then got grosser and peelier and skeezier. And yeah, he's memorable. They did a good job with him, even if they did a terrible job with him, in my opinion.
I think so too. I think he is more memorable for sure. What aged the best in this episode?
I didn't have an answer for this one. I I've got nothing. What age the best in your opinion, Jeremiah?
I think knowing what happens to Smallville, and eventually they do get away from the Freak of the Week storyline. they do sort of do a good job of explaining here in episode two, different people get different powers at different times, and this only happened because a swarm of bugs attacked this kid. Because when you watch it in a, I guess, non-critical kind of way. Obviously, we're doing this podcast, so we have a little bit more of a critical eye on the show. It seems like, well, why does a different person get a power a different week? Like, shouldn't it just be bonkers for the past, 15 years or so? Why is it conveniently a new week, a new problem? They explain that, I think, fairly well in this episode. So I think that may have aged that best for the show moving forward.
I agree. I agree. Because they did explain, and I think the time for like everyone to be brought in on Wall of Weird, yeah, it makes sense.
So, in contrast, Myriah, what aged the worst in Metamorphosis?
Listen, I'm gonna say it is Lex's clear and apparent obsession with a 15-year-old that ages the worst because I'm watching it through, and truly the first time I watched it, probably didn't think much of it, but I'm watching it through like 34-year-old woman's eyes, and I'm like, oh, Lex, like, no, like, and instead of being like ashamed that she saw you skinny dipping, you say, oh, you grew up. Nope, she saw you skinny dipping. You might just leave at that point. Like,
Yeah,
you might just, to be appropriate, walk out of the barn and be like, I don't think I'm going to keep interacting with this girl, especially knowing that they have a relationship later. Like, and the
right.
age difference is different then. Like, I'm not saying 6 years is a terrible age difference. It's not. But whenever she's 14, yes. So,
It still gives you the ick, and rightfully so. Like even when we were recording this a few minutes ago, and I was talking about how beautiful Lana is, I even feel weird saying that now because I'm like a 40-year-old dude saying how pretty she is. But Kristen Crook is like 6 months older than me.
right.
So
And, and,
I feel
and,
like
and you're
I said it
in,
then
yeah.
when we were both 18. I can say it now. We're still the same age.
And
But
it's the
even
same
now,
feeling
I
that
feel
I
weird
get.
saying it.
Like I watch High School Musical, and I'm like, oh, I feel wrong thinking that Zac Efron is hot, but like Zac Efron is older than me. Like, so it's, but you're not in the story. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
it's
I know what you mean.
it's
But
such a difference. Like, and
yeah,
Chris
it's
never
it's
too
kind
skinny to
of
oh, so like it's just a very like that's what does it.
because
Like
they
that's
went there.
what
They went
like
there with it.
yeah, like oh my goodness, I cannot believe you saw that. I'm gonna go. Like any appropriate man, that would be what he does. But yeah, nope. In that point, I'd be like, I'm not leaving Lex alone with my daughter. Like that's
Yeah, yeah. It's a weird choice. They made it. They didn't have to. He could have just came to visit her and not had that line of dialogue. Instead, they did. Two questions remain. What's the best quote from the episode, Mariah?
okay. Unfortunately, I have three. So the
Okay.
first is as soon as you start defying the laws of gravity, we're in uncharted territory because does that not like that's this whole show. Like, A, he doesn't really defy the laws of gravity. So like, but they're always in uncharted territory. But like with Superman, you're in an uncharted territory because like anyway. The necklace gives you the power, Clark. All you gotta do is use it. Which is ironic because the necklace actually strips him of power in a very dramatic and green veined way. Yeah. And then the did you know you could see my house from here? No. What? Like that was the best probably. Like the other ones like have meaning. This one's just a teenage weirdness. I love it.
Yeah. For me, I picked actually, in addition to the Jonathan Kent line that I've quoted twice already. I also like that Chloe said it's amazing how far that Kent charm will get you. It's sort of the first moment where we see that Chloe had maybe feelings for Clark. That's not really in the pilot, but she is very much into him in this episode, and that was such a quick way to do that. Or
Yep.
just how she delivers it
Yeah.
with the big grin on her face. When he
Yep.
says, I could never outgrow you other than vertically, that's not a funny joke, but she is so charmed by that line, um, and she acknowledges it. So I thought that was good.
Yep. Oh, agreed.
Ultimately, in the end, does this episode from you get a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Oh, no. I
I
would give it a thumbs
cannot.
up, but I'll hear you out
It,
first.
it's just a bug boy thing. Like this is the only episode of Smallville I have to skip through. And like of like my all-time favorite shows, like there are very few that have a skip episode for me. And so like this is a skip. Like if I were not watching this critically to do the podcast with you, like originally before we did the podcast, you and I were like, oh, we should just rewatch it and talk about it. And then like, yeah, I'll see you in episode 3. Like that's what I would have been like. Like this is yeah. So why is this a good episode to you?
Um, I just had a lot of fun watching it. I think um, everybody has something to do, which is not always the case in Smallville, just because it's a big cast. I think because he's such a creepy, icky villain, it's easy to get behind Clark with this one. So it feels like a smooth continuation to me. I liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Fair. Fair. If I were not so stuck on the grossness, I could probably see some good in it. But unfortunately, I'm stuck there and I shall not be moved.
That's okay. We move on. In good news, next week, no bugs in next week's episode. Next week, episode 3, which was Hothead, featuring the angry coach with the power of fire. That's where we're headed next in our next episode. Before we conclude, anything to add about Metamorphosis? This is your last chance to talk about Bug Boy in an official capacity.
I'm glad that this is my last chance to talk about Bug Boy in an official capacity, and I have no more to add.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us for this episode of Torch Talk. Be sure and subscribe and reach out to us if you have any questions about the show as we move forward. Thanks, as always, Myriah, for spending some time with me here on the podcast.
Well, thanks for hanging out with me. This was fun.
All right. We'll see you next time as we recap Hothead here on Torch Talk, a Smallville rewatch podcast. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.